R.I.C.H coming right back at you. And today, we're having a real conversation that most people avoid. We're not talking about symbols or rituals. We're talking about what it actually means when people say somebody sold their soul. Because that phrase has been turned into entertainment. And when something gets turned into entertainment, people stop taking it seriously. But some of the real truths in life are hidden inside of the things people laugh at. What if selling your soul is not about a moment, but about a decision that changes the direction of your life? And what if that decision doesn't feel like a loss at first? It feels like a win. A young person walks into the industry with talent and hunger, and they are offered an opportunity that could change their life. They are told this is their way out and their way into a world they never had access to. But what they are really being offered is a version of themselves that can be sold. And that version is not always who they are. It's who the market responds to. If the market responds to chaos, they become chaos. If the market responds to violence, they become violence. And if the market responds to negativity, they become negative. And they don't even realize that they are making this trade. They just think they're expressing themselves, but they are really shaping themselves into something that can be profitable. That's where the deal starts. Not on paper, but in identity. Once that image starts working, once the money starts coming in, and once the attention starts growing, it becomes very hard to step away from it. Because now your life is tied to that version of you. And this is where people get confused because they think the contract is the trap. The contract is just the door. The real trap is what you become after you walk through it. 10 years pass and you are no longer the same person. But your audience doesn't care about who you became. They care about who they fell in love with. So now you have a choice. You can grow and lose everything, or you can stay the same and keep everything. And most people choose to stay the same. This is the beginning of a lifetime agreement because now you are no longer working for yourself. You are working for the expectation that was built around you. And that expectation does not evolve just because you do. And this is where it gets deep because the longer you stay in that role, the harder it becomes to even remember who you were before it. You start thinking like the character. You start moving like the character. And eventually, you start believing you are the character. Now let's talk about why this is so powerful. Because when you're young, you ain't thinking about that. You ain't thinking about consequences that are 25 years away. You are thinking about survival, escape, and opportunity. So when somebody offers you a fast track to success, you don't question the long-term effects. You take the opportunity and you figure it out later. But later is when everything catches up. Later is when you realize that the thing that saved you also locked you in. And by that time, you have built a life that depends on this image. Now let's talk about the system behind it. Because this is not just about one person making a decision. This is about a system that rewards certain behavior and ignores others. Negativity moves fast. Controversy spreads quick. And chaos gets attention. So if you're an artist trying to survive in that, you're going to lean into what works. And what works is not always healthy. And that's how this cycle continues. The system rewards it. The artist performs it. And everybody plays their role without questioning the outcome. But the outcome is not just entertainment. The outcome is influence. And influence is what shapes our culture. And culture is what shapes people. Now we have to talk about the spiritual side of this, because this is where my point really needs to land. When you continuously put out energy that does not align with growth, it will affect you over time. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually. You become numb to it. You stop reflecting on it. You stop feeling the need to change it. And that numbness is what stops your growth. Not because somebody forced you to stop growing, but because you stop listening to the part of you that wants to grow. And that's the real loss. Not the money, not the fame, but the version of you that you never allowed to fully develop. Now let's talk about what happens after you realize what you've become. Because this is the part that most people never see. There comes a point where some people wake up. They start to see the pattern. They start to feel different. And they start to question what they've been putting out in the world. But waking up does not mean you are free. Because by the time you wake up, you've already built a system around you that depends on you being the same. You have fans who expect you to act a certain way. You have business ties that depend on this gangster image. And you have a lifestyle that requires you to maintain a certain level of income. So even if you change internally, you can't change externally. And that creates a conflict. You start living two lives. The private version of you is growing. And the public version of you is stuck in their 20s. And that public version of you is what pays you. So you feed it, even if it no longer represents you. Now let's talk about the audience, because this is not a one-sided situation. The audience plays a role in this, whether they realize it or not, because people don't just watch content, they reward it, they stream it, they share it, and they turn it into a success. So if the audience continues to reward destruction, destruction will continue to be produced. And that's a hard truth, but that's a real one. Now, let me talk about why it's so hard to break away from it. Because when you try to change, you don't risk just losing money. You risk losing your identity in the eyes of the public. People don't always accept growth. Sometimes they reject it. because it doesn't match the version of you they connected with. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. They would rather stay successful in a role that limits them than fail trying to evolve. And that's understandable, but that comes with a cost. The cost is time, the cost is purpose, and the cost is potential. Now let me go deeper into the spiritual side one more time. When you ignore your growth for long enough, you stop recognizing what growth even looks like. You start to believe that the role you playing is all there is. And that's when you have fully accepted it. Not because you had to, but because you stopped fighting it. And that is the final stage. Now let's bring this full circle. What does it really mean to sell your soul? It means you made a decision that locks you into a version of yourself that you can't escape without losing everything. It means you traded long-term growth for short-term success without realizing the cost. And it means that even if you wake up later, you may not have the freedom to change publicly. This is not about me judging anybody. This is about understanding the system. And understanding the system is the first step in not falling into it. Because once you see it clearly, you can move differently. You can make decisions with a long-term view. And you can protect yourself from becoming something you can't escape. Because at the end of the day, success should not come at the cost of who you are becoming. And that's what this whole conversation is really about. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe. Establish Rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.